Welcome back to GameShock TV. I'm Chris Hewitt, and this is still to come. It's Down and Dirty in our Homefront review, plus a chance to win a copy of your own. We explore some of the best recent releases and take an early look at a contender for Game of the Year. Coming out in a storm of controversy and intrigue, Homefront has been causing a stir with its premise of a Korean-occupied America. You play part of the resistance, fighting back for truth, justice, and lots of lovely fast food. It's a striking premise for a game, but is the story enough to elevate it from becoming just another clone of Duty? Let's find out. Some of you may have seen the 1984 film Red Dawn. Starring a pre-Dirty Dancing Patrick Swayze and a pre-Looney Tunes Charlie Sheen, it told the improbable tale of a handful of Midwestern high school students holding off the might of the Russian army in occupied America during World War III. The work of director John Milius, 27 years later, he appears to have written pretty much the same story for Homefront. The Russians are replaced by unified Korea, and the school kids by a raggle-taggle group of freedom fighters. The eagle-eyed may even spot a tribute to Red Dawn in the game, with a sign reading, "Go Wolverines!" a moving tribute to those brave, big-haired youngsters who took on the Russian bear. There are further similarities to the film in that the single-player mode lasts just about as long. There's a burgeoning trend in first-person shooters for the single-player element to be little more than a fluffer for the multiplayer, but Homefront takes it to the extreme, and even the most cack-handed player should be able to tear through the cursory 7 chapters in no more than a couple of sittings. While it lasts, however, it's a frequently thrilling affair, drawing heavily on the Call of Duty franchise, with even a nod to the peerless Half-Life 2. In place of Call of Duty's set-piece heavy ADHD, there's a great deal of tension, reminiscent more of the first Modern Warfare, rather than the Michael Bay-infused recent offerings. Cover is much more important, and unlike other shooters, a heroic gung-ho charge is more often than not met with a less than heroic bloody demise. You are led by the hand throughout the entire experience, but with a leap of faith, you can convince yourself that you're saving the US of A from the invading hordes. Reality is blurred by some genuine news footage, and the authenticity is maintained by the inclusion of real-life businesses such as Hooters, which is now available in Nottingham. Homefront is an unremittingly bleak affair, and the tone is set when a child sees his parents callously shot dead in front of him, and that's just the intro. Super Mario it ain't, and Homefront is almost certainly the first game in which a lead protagonist has to jump into a mass grave in order to avoid detection. There are some big set pieces, some varied locales, some genuinely involving gunfights, and then suddenly, it's all over, leaving you with only the mildly worrying prospect of taking on Xbox Live's drawling rednecks in the multiplayer. In the long term, this is effectively the real game, and a number of modes are thrown in to keep it interesting, with all the leveling up and buffs associated with a modern first-person shooter. Protecting bases and capturing the flag are given a much-needed shot in the arm with a 16-a-side option, and the point system for perks is implemented well. Initially coming across as Modern Warfare meets Battlefield, it eventually carves out its own niche with a mildly innovative Battle Commander mode. Homefront is something of a mixed bag then, set apart mainly by its premise. If you're only interested in a single player, you might as well rent it for a weekend, and if multiplayer is your thing, you may find the game offers what you're after, although there are a number of established games that already do most of it. Alternatively, for 300 Microsoft points, you could just watch Red Dawn. Wolverines! If you want to win a copy of Homefront, and if you don't, then frankly you're a communist or Dr. Doom, then all you have to do is answer the following simple question. What's the name of the Korean leader in Homefront? To enter, you must be at least 18 years old and capable of searching Google for answers. Now, if that's not enough to get your capitalist blood pumping, here's a tantalizing glimpse of some of the best titles to hit shop shelves in recent weeks. The heavyweight title holder is back, leaner and meaner than ever before. Now without the ultra-fiddly controls, which depending on your point of view could be a good thing or a bad thing, but with the much needed addition of a story mode to make those beatings you dole out by yourself all the more satisfying. And in an unusual move, its iPhone port is just as good as the console version. TKO. The superlatively over-the-top shooter from EA kicks its way into contention simply by being all-out ballsy fun. With tongue firmly in cheek and mind resolutely in the gutter, Bulletstorm is utterly hilarious and an instant hit of full-on insanity. Ridiculous, but quite possibly brilliant. And by way of contrast, here's a sequel to the wonderfully original and swear-free 2008 Wii game, now prettifying Xboxes and PlayStations as well. Plenty of cuteness and ingenuity on display as you guide your blob around, colouring in monochrome worlds, and it looks absolutely fantastic. While it does become a tad repetitive after a while, there's plenty to love about this platform puzzler, and it's well worth picking up. Legendary developer Tim Schafer brings his unique sense of wackiness to the world of puzzle-solving Russian dolls in his download-only title. Hilarity and downright quirkiness is the name of the game here, and it's addictive and original in equal measures. The PlayStation Phone, the Nintendo 3DS, and a whole barrage of AAA titles coming our way. Yep, 2011 is shaping up to be a banner year for games, but enough about banner, let's talk about Wayne, Bruce Wayne, because he's Batman. And there's a Batman game coming out, and it's Batman Arkham. Anyway, just cut to it. If ever there was a game that had people hankering for a sequel before they'd even finished the demo, it was Arkham Asylum. Riding the Chris Nolan wave back in 2009, the Caped Crusader was suddenly cool again, and the final piece of the jigsaw finally twanged into place with Rocksteady's spot-on tribute. And so it is that October this year sees the return of the Dark Knight in the expanded Arkham City. Following on from the original game, Gotham City's slums have now been turned into a gigantic prison under the mayorship of the asylum's former warden, leaving crime lords to run riot in the streets, fail to clean up garbage, and generally create havoc for any clown-phobic inhabitants. The Joker's back, frankly looking a little the worse for wear, but the Rogues Gallery have been expanded this time to include Hugo Strange, Catwoman, Two-Face, and plenty more that have only been hinted at, with nods to Black Mask, the Penguin, and even our old chum the Riddler, whose puzzles this time involve far more brainpower and risk from our winged Avenger. Starting the game with all the gadgets collected in Asylum, the erstwhile Bruce Wayne has a few more gizmos to look forward to this time around, including some stonking looking smoke bombs. The old ones aren't neglected, however, with Bats able to use the Batclaw and explosive gel in combat and hack into remote conversations with the cryptographic sequencer. He's also added a few nifty moves to his repertoire, each seemingly more badass than the next. Swoop and glide, aerial takedowns, and that's just what we've seen so far. With the promise of an even more open world, a refined detective mode, interrogation, and plenty more additions, there's very little chance of this being anything other than flat-out awesome. Well, that's all we've time for in this installment of GameShock, but be sure to tune in again soon for more golden nuggets from the world of gaming. Until then, goodbye. Unless you're Dr. Doom, in which case you can just right off.